Now, when it comes to UFOs and CRT, the Republicans are in a constant state of panic, but they're panicking about one thing and not the other. Now, it's more about scaring the gullible racist white people and feeding up that dark energy as a way of holding onto their pathetic power. Now, Chauncey DeVega had um, always wanted to write a headline or lead like that one. He grew up, basically, space aliens are real and they are here. Basically, that's the headline he wanted to write. Now, basically, he grew up listening to Art Bell's radio show, Coast to Coast AM, and devouring books and documents about extraterrestrials, especially ones about Area 51 and the Barney and Betty Hill. He also found that those early internet message boards about alien visitations in Roswell to be very existing places. I doubt that. Um, I'm 100% certain that ghosts don't exist. Famed paranormal investigators, the Warrens, did not even confirm that they did not even confirm it. But alas, I have never seen a UFO or extraterrestrial in the flesh. Now, while people have always wanted to write a headline or lead announcing first contact, it would seem that I will have to wait for some other time in the future, if ever, to ever see such a thing. If it That's because aliens don't exist. That's why we don't see them. Now, for the last few weeks, America has been experiencing a low-grade panic about UFOs, or as the military refers to them as UAPS, and a Chinese spy balloon. This national anxiety is not without cause or reason, but over the course of the last week, the U.S. military shot down several of these balloons in a series of incidents over Alaska, Canada, and Lake Huron. The Chinese spy balloon was destroyed by the U.S. Air Force off the coast of South Carolina earlier this month. Now, the down-to-earth and mundane explanation for these UFOs is that they are balloons, drones, or some other man-made object under the control of a government or unmentioned U.S. government agency, a corporation, university, or some other private organization or individual. And whatever these unknown objects in the sky are, they most certainly are not aliens from another planet or dimension. And on Thursday, President Biden told the nation this: We don't yet know exactly what these three objects were, but nothing right now suggests that they were related to a China spy balloon program, or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country. The intelligence community's current assessment is that these three objects were mostly balloons tied to private companies' recreation, like the recreational research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research. And we don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky, and we're not just seeking more of them partially because of the steps we've taken to increase our radars and to narrow our radars, and we have to keep adapting our approach to dealing with these challenges. Now, as I watched how our national UFO panic threatened to become a repeat of the Battle of Los Angeles, I immediately thought about legal scholar and attorney Derek Bell and his provocative science fiction short story The Space Traders. That was published in 1992. The Space Traders explores racism and white supremacy and the very precarious citizenship and belonging that the black people are subjected to here in the United States. And the book was also made into a 33-minute short story movie that was part of HBO's now cult classic film anthology, The Cosmic Slop, in 1994. Science fiction gains its power through speculation and taking the familiar and real, and then upending it to reveal a deeper truth. In the case of Space Traders, Bell's intervention is that in the year 2000, a fleet of UFOs appear and they offer a bargain. The aliens will give the United States a free source of endless energy and heal the environment if America's leaders agree to give them all the African Americans in the country. After much national debate, legislation is passed agreeing to the aliens' demands. In an obvious and intentional allusion to the transatlantic slave trade, black Americans are then marched up into the hulls of the huge spaceships to an unknown fate. Derek Bell was one of the founders of critical race theory. The Space Traders is an example of one of the core principles of critical race theory, CRT, that the law should be made more transparent and decipherable by all people because the law is an extension of power that impacts their lives. Storytelling, metaphors, and allowing more voices to share their subjective and personal experience of power in society are necessary tools by creating real social democracy. Back in 1991, the Law Journal article that Derek Bell's Chronicle of the Space Traders, it says that would the U.S. sacrifice people of color if the price was right? Now, Richard Delgado and Jen Stefanik provide this in context. Legal storytelling is a means by which representatives of new communities may introduce their views into a dialogue about the way society should be governed. Stories are in many ways more powerful than litigation or brief writing, and they may be necessary precursors to law reform. It offers insights into the particles into the particulars of lives that are lived at the margins of society and margins that are rapidly collapsing toward a disappearing center. This is not true just of our times. In biblical history, storytellers for oppressed groups told tales of hope and struggle, for example, that of the promised land to inspire and comfort the community during difficult times, and reality could be better and perhaps will be. Let me put that down for a minute. No, other storytellers have directed their attention to the oppressors, reminding them of a day when they would be called to account. Stories thus perform multiple functions, allowing us to uncover a more layered reality than it is immediately apparent, a refracted one that the legal system must confront. Until recently, law has aimed for consistency for the rule of law. Today, we are beginning to realize that this universality was false, and that it perpetuated exclusion. It cohered only by ignoring certain experiences, stories, and viewpoints. And today, these experiences and viewpoints are moving from the periphery to the center of storytelling as one of the vehicles that propels this movement. Now, Bell is now much more widely known outside of the relatively small number of academics and other experts and activists who were influenced by his scholarship, teaching, and mentoring because of his association with the white supremacist boogeyman, critical race theory. In reality, CRT is a very narrow and specialized field of study and theoretical framework that is exclusively taught at the advanced college, graduate, and postgraduate level. CRT's premise is basic and self-evident to any thinking and reasonable person who has even a passing knowledge of American society. This society in the West is structured around institutional and systemic racism and other forms of inequality, and the law is not neutral and cannot ever be truly neutral because it reflects those broader dynamics of power. At the Atlantic, Wesley Lowery elaborates on this. Back in the 1950s, Bell began his legal career as a civil rights attorney, and later he worked under Thurgood Marshall, but his best-known legacy is the early inspiration for what became known as critical race theory, a discipline that applies a critical lens to legal statutes and precedents, considering not just the words on the page, but the context in which they are drafted. And from the perspective of critical race theory, some positions have historically been depressed, distorted, ignored, silenced, destroyed, appropriated, commodified, and marginalized, and all of this not accidentally. Now, conversely, the law simultaneously and systematically privileges subjects who are white. And Bell said this during the 1995 speech at the University of Illinois, in which he said CRT's aim is to empower and include traditionally excluded views, and see all inclusiveness as the ideal because of our belief in collective wisdom. Now, in the decade or so since his death, Bell's work has been subject to a steady stream of histrionics. The term critical race theory is now applied to any teaching on race that conservatives believe will upset white Americans. The critics claim that critical race theory is a form of racial essentialism, although it is in fact the opposite. CRT seeks to understand how intersecting identities factor into someone's experience with their legal ethics and societal norm. It does not suppose that individuals can be defined solely by those identities. The aim is a country in which humans equally created or actually treated as such, and that's only achievable by understanding how the social concept of race continues to shape the American experience. Now, in the age of Trump, CRT is now a type of a symptom of empty signifier that the Republican fascists use to advance their project of scaring the white people and others invested in whiteness, in order to gain power across the country as part of a larger project of ending multiracial democracy. Now, to be certain, none of these new Republicans attacked President Barack Obama based on his association with Professor Bell while a student at Harvard. Now, Republican leaders like Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida and the douchebag Greg Abbott in Texas are using a moral panic about critical race theory as a way of instituting Orwellian thought crime laws, where they censor books, monitor, harass, and then fire teachers, librarians, and other educators for not siding with them. These life-filled, disingenuous attacks on critical race theory are designed to create an environment of threat and trauma for black people and others who are targeted as un-American because they scared the good white people that DeSantis, Abbott, and the other Republican fascists have declared themselves the defenders of, even though they're the exact opposite. They're not defending shit. Now, teachers and one Texas principal recently noted they are scared to let their students decorate their doors for Black History Month because they are scared the board is going to label them as woke. Now, just as with the UFOs and balloons and the other many thousands of unidentified things in the sky at any given moment, The Republican fascists and their forces are projecting their beliefs onto critical race theory as a way of advancing their own personal agenda. There is no there with the critical race theory boogeyman. But facts and reality and the truth are not the ultimate point, and scaring ignorant, gullible, and racist white people and feeding off of that dark energy as a way of getting more corrupt power and service is basically a fascist revolutionary political project, and it's all that matters to them. In addition to the space traders, I have also been thinking a lot about Rod Serling's Twilight Zone TV series and its classic episode, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, and that episode aired back in 1960. In that episode, space aliens create chaos in one neighborhood as a way of testing how easy it is to manipulate the human beings through paranoia and fear. And the real monsters on Maple Street are not the aliens, but the rather good white suburbanites who are running amok and attacking each other. And at the end of the episode, one of the aliens explains the plan. Their world is full of Maple Streets, and will go from one to the other and let them destroy themselves, and one to the other, and one to the other, and on to the other. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street closes with Rod Serling, the narrator, sharing the following wisdom with the audience. Now, the tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout, and there are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, and prejudice, and they're only to be found only in the minds of men. And for the record, prejudice can kill, and suspicion can destroy, and a thoughtless and frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout of its own for the children yet that are not born. And the pity of it is that these things cannot be confined to the Twilight Zone. Now, Rod Serling's wisdom and warning were as true as the height of the Cold War and Red Scare and the Lavender Scare and the Coin Telpro, as they are today with the Republican fascists and the white supremacist critical race theory of moral panic. Now, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just as little as a few bucks a month, or even for a few bucks a video, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.